welcome all of you to the Wednesdays for Water discussion on building resilience through a nature-based and community-centric approach. So some of you, several of you are regular participants of our Water Talk series. We are into the second year of this weekly talk series. We have more than 100 speakers and have also organized more than 100 events. In these last 1 year and I think second 2 or 3 months. This specific session will focus on how communities across the country have undertaken initiatives that they inherited from the past and how they tweak those to the current time requirements, for different regions. Today, the session was supposed to be moderated by Dr. Suparna, because he is the one who planned this and also reached out to all our esteemed speakers today. Dr. Suparna is a colleague of mine at Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Hyderabad campus, but due to some personal medical emergency, she has to she has to attend at her home front. I have been stepping into this role of moderator, and I hope I'll be doing the justice to the session because she is the one who planned this and also reached out to the speakers. And today we are very privileged to have among us two distinguished speakers with us, Dr. Pranab J. Patar and Dr. Mirza Zulfiqur Rahman as speakers. And also our young Sushmita Sarma as our discussant. I'll have a brief introduction of our panel today, and then I'll share the detailed introduction in the chat here in the interest of time. Dr. Pranab J. Patar, position of CEO at Global Foundation, New Delhi. He's an award-winning environment and sustainability professional with over 20 years of experience, having worked with leading national and international organizations such as Earthwatch Institute, GIZ, WaterAid, TERI, Wildlife Trust of India, Center for Environmental Education, etc. He has received many awards and also currently Chief Executive of Delhi-based Environmental and Social Impact Organization called Global Foundation for Advancement of Environment and Human Wellness. Our second speaker today, Dr. Mirza Zulfiqur Rahman, is an independent researcher based in Guwahati, Assam. He holds a PhD in Development Studies from IIT Guwahati. His research specialization is in border studies in Northeast India, vernacular understanding of climate change, and transboundary water sharing and management issues between China, India, Bhutan, and Bangladesh. Dr. Rahman is committed to grassroots-based alternative community work and development models. Our discussant today, Sushmita Sarma, Ms. Sushmita Sarma, is a master's student at Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Hyderabad campus. She is pursuing her master's in natural resources and governance, and she is in her semester 3. And I happen to be also the one who is associated with the program teaching there. So we have a very distinguished panel today, as having very wide experience on this specific issue that we are discussing today. So without wasting any more time, I would like to request our speakers to sharing whatever they would like to share today. So may I request Dr. Pranab to start with his talk, and then we'll move to the second. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Naik. First of all, let me extend my gratitude and thank you to all the organizers of W4W Foundation and Wednesdays for Water. This is an honor to be able to share my thoughts on this very unique aspect of decentralized conservation, and also the importance of community participation and engagement in conservation of our natural resources, particularly water. I'm going to throw a few perspectives based on my own experience, and also share a couple of examples from the kind of work that we do in that context. And so I would be sharing a few slides on this. Of course, it's a slightly longer presentation, but in the interest of time, I'm not going to be referring to all the slides. So I'll try to be brief. We have another very esteemed speaker here from the Northeast. So let me just share my presentation first.
We were able to share.
Yeah, I am just trying to show all windows. Yes. Yes, I've got it. Is this visible to all?
Yes, it is.
Okay, lovely.
Maybe you can put that to the
Yes,
slide.
I have.
Oh.
Thank you. So as Mr. Nayak has already mentioned, that I'm a daily-based environment and sustainability professional, and I represent an organization called Global Foundation, shortly. This is a fairly new initiative. It's we are focused on water, climate change adaptation, resilience building, and food and nutrition security. So I'm not going to go into the depth of what we are exactly doing, but in due course of the presentation, maybe we'll share a few specific project examples in terms of in line with the theme of our discussion today. So I'll straight away come into the main topic. So I would like to begin with a few scenarios, which is this is a very interesting slide that I want to share with all our audience and participants here. And I'd like to take a few of all of you to take a few moments to look at these pictures in this slide. Then probably from there on, we can start talking about more on decentralized conservation and participatory action. So I'm sure these pictures are not unusual to you, but I would like to also, while looking at the pictures, you'd like to also consider if you find something alarming here. Of course, most of the pictures, see, today's the world that we live in, either we are going through some of these pictures kind of situations we are facing upfront on our day-to-day basis, or we are surrounded by similar kind of situations, if not in our immediate environment, but in places we are aware of in our kind of larger environment. So these pictures entails to a larger problem that the world is facing at this moment. Obviously, I'm referring to climate change, and this is one change. Although, as human beings are fond of change, and we keep highlighting the importance of change, and we do emphasize that the change should be the only constant in life. But this is one change probably people are not fond of, and we are rather worried about this particular change the world is experiencing at this moment, that is climate change. And most of the things that I'm going to talk about, whether it is problems or solutions, are inherently linked to this change. But is this a change that is only referring to the crisis, or it is also talking about certain opportunities? And if we look at the larger, look at the global perspective, of course, this particular report of World Economic Forum and that highlights the global risk and put them in different time frames: short term, immediate term, and long term, from 0 to 2 years, 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years, and all of them, whether it is short term, it is or the long term, all of them highlight only one thing, either extreme weather event, livelihood crisis, water crisis, or climate action failure. So directly or indirectly, we are referring to a change that is talking about or leading us all up to this global catastrophic change with known as climate change. But these changes that we are facing, if they are hard facts and if they are the kind of crisis that the world is going through, then of course it is also giving us a ray of hope, giving us a ray of hope in the sense that we are able to also talk about solutions. If I want to refer to this very important quote of Rahm Emanuel, a career politician from the United States. He said, you should never let a serious crisis go to waste. But the reason he's underscoring that, because every crisis situation can lead to solutions, lead to opportunities. As we say, necessity is the mother of invention. So it leads to innovative ideas and actions that can create opportunities while we are trying to deal with these problems. And now coming to our core focus, water so I would like to call it blue and green spaces, the forest cover, as well as our water bodies. We all know that they are disappearing right, left, and center because of number of factors, including anthropogenic issues. And this particular slide, it gives you a perspective how it is changing over a period of time, and how with increase of urban and built up environment, we are losing our water bodies, water resources, as well as green cover. This is an alarming picture. And that leads to, and most of the time now, if I go back to the pictures, the set of pictures that I've shown right in the beginning of this presentation, most of the pictures indicate local challenges, local problems, either whether it is air pollution, whether it is drought, whether it is a flood. These are local problems we are facing or we are dealing with. And when we are talking about local problems, I want to think, when we want to deal with or address local problems, can we not focus more on local issues, local solutions, rather than talking it from a larger global perspective? Of course, global perspective is important. It is the smaller problems are cumulatively a culmination of a larger problem. But if we want to deal with the larger problems, probably we'll have to start looking at from where we are, from a more decentralized focus, from wherever we are. And from that perspective, I want to focus on what probably can be done to save our bioresources, whether it is blue spaces or green resources, from a decentralized perspective, and what is being done at our end, and what kind of mechanisms that is available. I'm not going into the depths of why ecosystem is an important, and what kind of services the humankind and the living beings of the planet are receiving from an ecosystem. I'm not going to the depth of it, because it's something it's all everybody is aware about. I just want to highlight on this particular slide, services, something that we don't even realize actually coming, especially in an urban context. They are a product of result of the blues and greens that we have in our local environment. if we are surrounded with green and blue spaces, we can be endowed with a lot of services, a lot of advantages, whether it is biodiversity, improve air quality, water quality, better environment, ambience, shades, greenery, and also shelter, food for other living beings, including birds and mammals and so on and so forth. So in that context, I want to highlight that, not everything is doom and doom. Despite all the limitations and the challenges the world is facing today, we are not out of hope. We have hope and we have solutions. Like I said, the more the problem, more solutions we are trying to create, innovate. And from a collective and multi-pronged approach, if we start looking at local problems and try to devise more solutions from a local perspective in a more multi-pronged approach, like whether it is through engaging people by reducing the threat then and there only, whether it is by our own action, whether it is by reduction in electricity consumption, reduction in wastage of water, reduction of wastage of food, whether we do it through plantations drives at our local level, in our locality, in our university campuses, or at the town level. So we all can start looking at a solution that will lead to a bigger, addressing a bigger problem at a larger context. So it will actually help build a resilience of our society and also the environment. Probably it could create a better solutions to deal with the problem that we are facing, whether we talk about climate change adaptation, or talk about climate change mitigation. We all require to build the resilience to be able to withstand these changes, mankind as well as our natural environment, as well as the other living beings. And to be able to do that, we need to create these local solutions and take them very, very seriously. Earlier we used to think, as a single individual, what more probably one can do, or a smaller initiatives like a plantation drive, cleanliness drive, and doing things, positive things at our home front as an individual will not make much difference. But it's not true. A collective effort of people coming together, individual efforts coming together, can make a larger and long-term impact, positive impact. And that is what we want to highlight here. The decentralized approach to conservation, what it means is that we should be able to protect our natural resources, whether it is a green patch or a small water body, when it is a small pond. We should be able to protect them. We should be able to conserve them. We should be able to restore if they are on the verge of dying or disappearing. We should be able to restore them wherever they are, and we should take these initiatives very, very seriously. Because if we look at the larger cumulative effort, like for a long time, if we just refer to India alone, for a long time, our conservation approach has been more protected area specific. And the conservation, from a biodiversity conservation perspective, people used to consider that, if we do it through national parks and sanctuaries, only then we'll be able to probably achieve conservation in real sense. But that is important, but that's not the sole medium or tool available today. Or we've realized that, by doing conservation outside the protected area network also, we can do much more for saving our biodiversity. This is a small example. The smaller water bodies like wetlands, rivulets, smaller grasslands, even grazing lands, forests with no conservation status, even our agriculture fields, village ponds, our institutional campuses, school campuses, university campuses, private forests. even crematorium, cemeteries, that could be all, micro biodiversity hotspot. In their own way, they are one unique ecosystems available wherever they are. And we should do more to preserve them, protect them, and also assess their biodiversity potential. Create a database of these assets, green assets or blue assets, and also undertake periodic monitorings to be able to understand how they are getting impacted by changing environmental conditions. This will give us a long-term perspective and give us a larger picture of how local environment, urban ecology is responding to change, responding to environment. Because if we concentrate only on the bigger green patches like protected areas, national parks and sanctuaries, we will perhaps overlook these smaller entities, smaller green patches which hold importance ecologically. So, and how do you do that? We do that by promoting local actions, undertaking, collaborating with local communities. Because, to be able to do local actions and protect, conserve areas, it is important that we join hands with local communities. And also, given the fact that India is in dire need of livelihoods, so we should also be able to create, while trying to protect these assets, we should also be able to create livelihood opportunities, skill development and entrepreneurship opportunities for the local community, whether through nature protection, even for protection and restoration. For example, I'm going to give you a quick example about a few things that we have undertaken here at our level here. Like, for example, these are some of the restoration work that we have undertaken. Restoration of water bodies. We are also promoting eco-technologies, like, for example, phytoreeds-based constructed wetland, which is also known as subsurface horizontal flow constructed wetland, to purify water, which is coming from the neighboring areas, domestic sewage into our water bodies. We are trying to purify them through environment-friendly energy, no energy, zero energy technologies, and so that these water bodies can be protected from future degradation. When the water bodies, for example, this picture below, this is an example from Ghaziabad area in Delhi NCR. So where water bodies are getting disappeared because of a number of factors, natural as well as people started to consider them as dump yards. So we are trying to protect them and restore them, and also trying to ensure that continuous flow of clean water comes into these water bodies, so that they thrive as an ecosystem. They are able to also support other life forms, whether it is aquatic life forms, birds, fishes, so on and so forth. And we are deploying these eco-technologies at the ground level, and thereby we are training and engaging local communities who are finding livelihoods through these small actions at the ground level, and making them part of, give them a sense of ownership, so that they know they can continue to protect these water bodies from further degradation. So this is an example of Nyaifal area again in Ghaziabad, where a small study assessment, not comparison undertaken by the Times of India, they've found that the water bodies which has a strong community engagement and participation, they're thriving now after restoration. But at the same time, there are water bodies which were also being restored, but without the presence of community participation, they are now again started to deteriorate. So these are some of the classic examples where we are facing that how community engagement is supporting conservation at the local level. And like I said, we're able to protect these resources wherever they are, whenever it's required. So this is another work of rainwater harvesting. This is a slightly advanced model of rainwater harvesting. So this is essentially to create aquifer recharge, because natural recharge of aquifers are not happening anymore because of the vast constructions happening all over the place due to the lack of soft, open areas in the urban centers in the cities today. So we needed to create these artificial aquifer recharge systems so that the aquifers below underneath can be recharged on a regular basis. And it is also leading to some other solutions, like for example, just by doing aquifer recharge, we were also able to see that groundwater contamination is also getting addressed. Then this is a very popular model from the Northeast, which we have tried to implement and borrowed here in the parts of Delhi NCR, in places near Haryana. This was undertaken in a Ramsar site. It's a newly recognized Ramsar site last year. It's called Vindabas, where we have been able to, with the help of Northeastern Development and Finance Corporation's trainers, we were able to train them and give them sense of empowerment, because this is Haryana is known as a Zendesk youth society, to be able to work among women there and make them give them sense of empowerment through a new livelihood avenue is a big, I feel it's a big achievement, and they were able to showcase and sell their products in none less than Surajkund International Trade Fair. So these kind of smaller experiences we are trying to do while continue to do a bit for conservation of blue and green spaces in the urban context. And we are seeing results, not in, I mean, I would not say these are ultimate successes. This is a work in progress, but we can see the ray of hope. Before I close my presentation, I would like to also highlight this new mechanism, which is coming as a big motivating factor for people who are now trying to focus on or trying to see that decentralized conservation approach can really work. This is a model. This is an approach called OECM, other area-based conservation measure, which is a mechanism opposed to, not opposed. This is an alternative mechanism to national parks and sanctuaries. And in Delhi, coincidentally, Aravali Biodiversity Park, which is a restoration site and part of the great Aravali Hill Range, is now recognized as the India's first OECM site, and where through restoration process, a forest in the Aravalis has been revived and almost brought it to its original shape and state. So, and without disrupting other thing, OECM is more popular because this is flexible. This is not as stringent as a national park or a sanctuary in terms of the regulatory frameworks. This is more people-friendly mechanism where people has a far more a stronger engagement in conservation, and thereby we can promote the coexistence of a site, conservation site, and coincidentally, this OACM site in Haryana, in Gurgaon, which is Aravali Biodiversity Park, it's right in the middle of a densely populated urban area, urban center. So things are happening. Things are coincidentally happening for good. In fact, in Delhi NCR region, again in Ghaziabad, we are also trying to promote creation of urban green cover forest areas through Miyawaki technology, which is a very, very popular Japanese technology to recreate a forest in urban areas, in areas where we have scarce of open land or areas to do plantation. So in smaller plantation, we are able to create dense forest in a very, very short time frame. So this is a few examples that I wanted to highlight, to be able to create patches which are no less than smaller, like I said, smaller micro biodiversity hotspot, and more importantly, they are micro sites for of carbon sink. They are very, very important carbon sinks, and we need to continue to look at and highlight these smaller sites for conservation so that we can continue to reduce our carbon emission and capture carbon through green cover and blue spaces. So thank you. That's what I wanted to share, and looking forward to more discussions on this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dr. Pranab, for such a wonderful talk. I think you have wonderfully joined the dots between the locals to the global. You started with the climate change, then flagged about the importance of blue and green infrastructure, and I think then shared some many interesting experiences and ended with OECM sites and few other innovations that happens at the local community level. I think that's a wonderful perspective for all our participants here. Thank you so much. So now we'll move to our second speaker, Dr. Mirza.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this. And I just also thank you, Pranab, also for setting the stage for the wonderful presentation. I actually wanted to share something. I just wanted to share some pictures. Are you seeing, being able to see the screen? Yes, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. So I just the topic that I'm going to speak today about is about how local communities, how they look at their spaces, what are the alternative worldviews in this larger space where I work in, which is between the eastern Himalayas, the high Himalayas, and the rolling hills of the Patar mountains, and which is basically constituting the larger region where Northeast India is situated in. But I just don't want to also speak only about Northeast India, but in a sense of getting a larger perspective of communities living in this larger geographical space, in a sense. So if you look at this picture also, it depicts the high Himalayas on the far distance, which is Tibet, and also the rolling hills that basically comprises most of Northeast India, it is very, I have been spending quite a lot of time traveling in different parts of this region, talking to communities, talking about the local governance mechanisms. And I just wanted to also share some perspectives on how local communities look at, the aspects of climate change that we talk about. What are the vernacular understandings of climate change, in a sense? So this picture is a screen grab taken from Google Earth. In a sense, also shows the larger space in terms of the. You can see the Brahmaputra river coming in from the east, the Ganges coming in from the west, and the Teesta coming in, and many tributaries coming in from the north, and merging together in Bangladesh, and going and forming the Sundarbans down there. And also you could see parts of the eastern Himalayas here. You could see parts of Bhutan, Sikkim, parts of Myanmar here. So in that sense, this the whole understanding of geographical spaces, which are very natural spaces, sometimes evades our understanding somehow from in terms of how we look at communities. Actually, what we dominantly think about in today's times when we talk about climate change, or when we talk about resilience, or we talk about adaptation, we mostly talk about in terms of nation-state boxes, in a way. So this map here basically signifies the South Asian and the Southeast Asian kind of nation-state framing, and the transboundary rivers basically that starts on the Tibetan Plateau and crisscrosses the entire region. So here I wanted to actually emphasize on this point as to how we look at transboundary rivers and the borders that we have actually created in South and Southeast Asia, in the sense the national borders which predates these rivers and these ecosystems, and how the rivers, the transboundary rivers, are the flows versus the fixed understandings of these transbound, of the borders, that the nation state borders that we sometimes tend to think, or more dominantly tend to think about natural systems, rivers, in our respective national context. And that is where I think we miss the overall perspective of how we have to look at the community level understanding. Because the community level understanding, to my mind, cannot come at a from a very national centric perspective. It has to come by making borders irrelevant in terms, and also being able to take off the national border and then put in solutions which can actually bring about benefits across in a transboundary scale, in a more larger regional scale, in a sense. This is another picture of the Brahmaputra River, which is an aerial picture. And this picture, if you look at the top of the picture, is the river. The Brahmaputra River is flowing on the sandbars that you see on the river, and on the bottom of the picture you can also see the plains of Assam. And this interconnections is what I try to emphasize in terms of what I try to say, that across all the Eastern Himalayas and the rolling hills that I'm talking from the perspective of, are inhabited by small communities who have a very, very definite worldview of their ecology and the diversity. And that has to be protected, and that has to be understood, because it has a lot to inform the modern governance systems on water, on what we try to actually implement, and also mitigation measures towards the effects of climate change and the hazards that we are actually seeing in terms of flood risks and other risks that we are facing today in our times. So in that sense, this understanding has to move beyond the nation-state borders or provincial borders. Sometimes we also tend to only think about, when we talk about Assam floods, for example, we only talk about Assam floods in a sense, but then it is so much more than only limited to the boundaries of Assam, that we sometimes do not factor in. So what my core point here today is to emphasize this, that we have to take an eco-regional understanding, a larger bio-regional understanding, in terms of being able to situate community knowledge systems, traditional community knowledge systems, and able to situate the agency of the communities in our dialogue and conversations around ecology, water, and climate change. So I think that has to happen, and only then we will be able to bring out these stories of resilience at a larger transboundary scale, and also be able to imitate the natural geography and bring sustainable solutions to our the problems that we are facing. In that context, this eco-regional and bio-regional understanding will take us a long way forward towards bringing in those solutions, and also be able to, sometimes it is always said that our community solutions, community-based solutions or traditional understandings of how to manage our ecology, are they scalable to a certain level, but the whole point again is to actually see how it definitely can be done, but we have to also have alternative frameworks, alternative frames to understand community knowledge systems first, to be able to unlearn ourselves first from our dominant methodologies that we have, and then be able to actually listen to the community about the stories of resilience, about the past histories of how they have actually been able to coexist and live with, move along as the rivers have moved, or move along as how ecologies have transformed over time. From what my research in Northeast India, what we actually now see, the landscape is dotted by the whole narrative of that Northeast India is the land of the rising power or hydropower in terms of India, basically. So in that sense, a lot of this state-centric kind of understandings are being pushed forward from where rivers are being dammed, not only by China but also across the border in India, in Bhutan. We see a lot of hydropower dams being built, and this is the landscape that looks like, in a sense. But I also put this picture here because sometimes when we see this picture is unconnected from the grid. So basically, somehow we also have to make these connections in a much more better manner to be able to imitate the larger landscape and be able to make community interactions and community decision making into policies that we undertake in the name of development in a much more meaningful manner, so that communities can be able to participate in this and be able to give their inputs in a much more sustainable manner based on the traditional knowledge systems. There are these rivers in Arunachal Pradesh which are being under construction, of dams here in eastern Arunachal Pradesh. You can see rivers such as these in Bhutan, for example, where the Punatangcho hydropower project is coming up. And I've spoken to communities at length in these areas where these projects are coming up, and most of them always revert back and talk about their traditional community understandings of how these rivers are very, very, this whole aspect of human element to rivers, in a sense. So in that sense, many people say that if we cut the rivers into different parts, or cut a person, for example, into different parts, will the person be able to survive? And so a river may not also be able to survive in that sense. So they see the dams as being ruptures in the body of the river in that context. This is also a picture of the Siang River, which is coming in from Tibet. And as many as 36 dam projects are being planned, and also many 12 dam projects are also being planned by China, and some are already under construction, and two of them have already, one of them has already been completed in 2015. So these projects will definitely harm the larger landscape and the riverscape, and also the communities that live in this larger region. This is the pace of life in these parts. This is a picture which I've taken from above this river, basically. And this is a bamboo bridge which is constructed above the Siang River. And local communities from far-flung villages actually take a lot of pains to come to the nearest market to sell whatever they produce. And you can see here women coming across these bamboo bridges. And this is the pace of life, which is also missing the very basic social infrastructure of market access, education, healthcare, proper sanitation measures. All of these soft infrastructure is missing in these areas. But then at the same time, we are talking about big physical infrastructures like dams that are being built in this river. So I think there's a very big disjunct between how we are looking at the pace of development and the pace of infrastructure interventions in this region. I have also spoken about floods in Assam, and these are occupying barriers to protect against riverbank erosion. Riverbank erosion is such a big issue in Assam, and a lot of these interventions in the rivers that we have done, the infrastructure interventions have also led to a lot of communities being embanked in and embanked out, in a sense. A lot of communities are being put into vulnerable positions where flooding has actually taken place over 5 cycles in a given one given year. So in that sense, the ability of communities to be able to use their traditional knowledge in order to confront such floods is missing in many ways. And that is the basic problem that we now see, that disasters and risks in the larger Brahmaputra floodplain, for example, has become so enormous. The intensity of the floods have become so enormous, the catastrophic nature of the floods, that communities are not being able to use their traditional knowledge to confront them. And a lot of out migration is also happening from different parts of Northeast India and Assam also, particularly due to such floods. So in context, I think I would like to end actually with this picture of the living root bridges in Meghalaya, which also depict a very, very strong message of, in terms of our understanding of ecology, of our understanding of transboundary spaces, of resilience. These living root bridges almost take about 40, 50, 60 to 70 years to build. And the communities who build this this traditional living root bridges, when they start out to build, the people who start out to build these bridges know very well that they will not be able to use it for themselves in their own lifetime. So it is a very good example of intergenerational sharing and exchange, the intergenerational understanding across communities, which we need to imbibe into our larger eco-regional and bioregional understanding for understanding approaches and responses to what we see today in terms of climate change and its the responses to it. So thank you. Maybe in the discussion we'll have more questions and we can discuss more. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Mirza, for taking us to a different landscape that I think many of us may not be familiar with, and also sharing these interesting stories about how communities also keep keep creating or keep innovating these very localized solutions to deal with the changes, or to live in harmony with the nature, or to sustain, to make them resilient over all the over the years. This is a very interesting perspective. Yes, I think without me talking more about this, may I request now our discussant to share her thoughts, ask questions, and then we'll open this for the discussion. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sushmita.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank both the speakers for this wonderful session. So I would like to ask first to Dr. Pranab, sir. I have two questions for you, Dr. Pranab. You talked about climate change. So when it comes to climate change, most of the things that we see are projected. So we are not really sure. It's all these things are just projections, and most of the decisions that we make about climate change are mostly on our anticipation, because we don't have the full picture. So so how would you say that in a local level, in a community level, resilience can be built to such cases when it comes to climate change?
Thank you, Sushmita. If I've got your questions correctly, see, we are trying to understand, because since most of the things are basically predictions and projections, and we not necessarily know for sure, how the future looks like in real sense, and whether this kind of the adaptive measures or the resilience building exercises that we are doing, whether this is really going to help us overcome the challenges. See, when we talk about adaptive measures or the resilience building exercises, these are based on what is working already on ground, right? And it may be smaller interventions in the context of the larger climate change impact that is happening globally. But these, for now, at least these exercises, wherever we are working, it is working, whether we're referring to urban areas of Delhi NCR or any other place, or maybe the parts of Uttarakhand where we also were working to build resilience there by using low carbon energy solutions, promoting crops, local crops with low uh, carbon footprint or invasive interventions in terms of non-organic materials and things like that. So these are currently working, and this is the results are already evident. Like for example, the local interventions of aquifer recharge, we are already seeing. Like for example, I was part of a major project undertaken by Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University in Hyderabad, JNTU. Through groundwater aquifer recharge exercises undertaken for a period of almost 2 years, the nearby area, this campus is in a place called Kukatpalli in Hyderabad. So nearby areas in Kukatpalli where people used to use boring to withdraw water, they're saying suddenly our water level has gone up. Whereas the intervention was undertaken in a campus. But in the neighboring areas also, they reported the water level is going up. So these kind of experiences are positive results are being and now talking about the restoration exercises that we are doing in Delhi NCR. Here it's happening in two ways. Now, one, by providing livelihood opportunities, we are also trying to we are able to engage communities in a positive way. Now they have started taking ownerships, whether they immediately, difference between urban population, urban audience, and the populations, like for example, what Dr. Mirza has referred to in the. So difference is their people, they know that, they're on their own. They'll have to find their ways to face with the problem because no help is coming from outside. Here, whereas in the urban areas, people think, we have the government, we have the municipal corporation, they will find a solution in any case. But despite all of that, we are able to engage bring multi stakeholders in our work and give them a positive sense of hope, and also create these water bodies which were lying dead for many years. Now they suddenly realize, oh, this is the same water body when I was a kid, I used to go swimming. Now this was lying dead for many years, now this has come to life again. So it is always not necessarily, they may not be able to perceive the larger environmental benefit of a water body coming back to life, but gradually they will see the value, and that is we're able to do it, because most of the problem today it is created by human beings. So once you are able to convert them, so I think that is it is a long road ahead, of course, without doubt, but we have hope. And also, like I said, there are many instances, even these small local solutions are creating positive environmental value. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I also have one more question. Sir, you mentioned about databases of blue-green infrastructure. So can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, thank you. This is something we tried at an experimental pilot level with schools. We had a program called ICT for Environment. This actually where this program went on to win national awards like Vodafone Mobile for Good, and also Times Digital India Award as well, in way back in 2015 and 16. So with this, we used digital tools to engage school students to monitor their local biodiversity. So this is what I feel is a very, very important exercise, although I see a lot of potential, and and the need to do more on this. From that small exercise, what I have come to realize that, see, if you look at the cumulative value, suppose you live in a small town and you have 10 different schools and colleges in your town. And these are small campuses, but green campuses. So if you look at the cumulative value of these green campuses in terms of number of species they harbor, whether it is butterfly, reptiles, and birds, it may be comparable to a smaller sanctuary elsewhere. So that is the cumulative value. So moment you start conserving these resources, smaller resources, and also create a database, and by not just create a checklist. Checklist is one-time affair. I am talking about a regular monitoring, periodic monitoring exercise, which will also give you a trend of how this is changing positively or negatively, whether this is species number is going upward or downward, and relate them to change with changing environment, maybe local weather pattern, temperature, rainfall, and see 10 years down the line how this local biodiversity is responding to environmental change. And the other reason why I'm emphasizing, like I said, the cumulative value of this smaller campus is very large. And now, if we only focus on national parks and sanctuaries, which may be 50 kilometers away from your town, you will lose out this important resource which are right next to your house. And if you don't document them and record them, even if they are lost in due course of time, you will never know what you have lost. By doing this exercise, monitoring and regular survey, you never know, you may come across something which is rare, as maybe a butterfly species which may not be available elsewhere, but in your own town. So this kind of database only, and you see importance of conservation when you know what you're conserving, and that will also help you when you lose. You know what valuable species that you have lost. If it is not recorded, you would not know that it should have been conserved, and it is when it is lost, you would never know that this existed. So that's why local monitoring is very, very important. Yeah, that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So I have a few questions for Mirza sir as well. So my first question to you would be, sir, that you talked about community-based resource management. In a community-based resource management, there are different stakeholders, and sometimes it might be the case that there must be a conflict of interest between the stakeholder. So in that case, what is the way forward for managing the resource?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Actually, in a very, very diverse geography, such as, where I work in, actually from my own experience, I think it is about imitating such diversity itself can bring out solutions in a kind of a, in terms of dialogue, in terms of community consultations, and the traditional structures, actually, as to how communities resolve their differences. The traditional peace-building mechanisms, for example, which are present, are regularly employed in terms of environmental issues, issues related to sacred forests, for example, sacred groves in different parts of Northeast India, maintenance of them. So the diversity of stakeholders definitely can be an issue, and also if it is very fragmented in terms of provincial boundaries, for example, in the sense, for example, between Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, or Assam, Nagaland, or Nagaland, Meghalaya, all of these kind of different diversity that we actually look at from a very, very nation state perspective or a provincial kind of a perspective. Sometimes those kind of solutions do not work, but the traditional institutions work very well on the ground. So I think that is where the strength lies in terms of how communities have these kind of traditional mechanisms in place. And but somehow, if we do not also document those stories of resilience, or document those stories of dialogue, or document and also empower such communities to be able to participate meaningfully in environmental decision making in their daily lives, then such institutions may also go out of relevance in our modern understanding of resource governance. And I'm not saying that it will be irrelevant for the communities itself. They will still remain, but in the larger cross-cultural understanding or the larger geographical understanding of this. So I think there is where I think we need to intervene and also bring out these kind of case studies, examples from the ground to be able to inform larger cross-cultural understanding, a larger cross-geographical understanding, and responses towards such disasters and risks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sushmita, and thank you, the speakers, for responding to Sushmita's questions, which are, I think, very interesting. So now we would like to open this for other participants. So any questions, you can please raise your hands or unmute and speak, or share your chat, share in the chat box, whichever is convenient for you.
Bibu, may I?
Yes, yes. Hi.
I'm just trying to recover from COVID, but I'm tempted, such amazing speakers. I'm just tempted to ask questions. Huh? So my two thoughts, and maybe you could share your opinion on that. I think to Pranab, I would really like Pranab, and of course Mirza also brought up, but Pranab primarily said on community engagement and whenever we talk of community, mostly we look at the rural community, the ones who perhaps are least responsible for climate change. They are the ones who probably do not even contribute significantly to carbon emissions that we are talking about. But how do we really look at engaging the urban community in terms of, because when we are looking at behavioral change, or if we are looking at really significant, reduction in emissions, it's the urban population that we need to really focus or target at, that how do we really look at changing their behavior, both in terms of reducing their carbon footprint, but also reducing their water footprint and indulging in things like rainwater harvesting and other things. So that's for Pranab. And for Mirza, I have, Mirza, you did bring out about the dams, you highlighted about the dams that are there. Now, while, dams is a problem, there is no doubt, and I'm a very strong opponent of that myself. But India is heading towards, they have committed almost about 500 gigawatt of electricity generation through non-fossil fuel. And the major chunk of it is going to be dams. So how do we really look at, how do we look at other alternate options or lobby to see that we don't invest in hydro power too much, given that it's already creating a lot of problem? So over to you.
Yeah, so whoever would like to go first, Pranab, Mirza.
Please, Pranab, go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Fozia. How are you? Thanks for that very, very interesting question. In fact, most of our experiences here I've covered today are in the context of urban areas. So I actually was referring to urban population only, though some of the areas where we worked in, even within Delhi NCR, around whether it is Ghaziabad or Noida, they are not necessarily purely urban population. I would say semi-urban population. So it is always difficult, although surprisingly, it is easier to work with rural population for some reason, although like you said, they are not directly responsible for changing climate, but somehow they have this sense of responsibility to be more considerate, that they can do something for saving our environment, whereas that's not the case. I have two experiences working with urban community even in Delhi NCR. One, during many years ago, in my times in Terry, I used to handle a project, a component under Yamuna Action Plan that was more to do with Yamuna conservation, engaging with school children for generating awareness on Yamuna and other issues. So for urban population, it has to be something, unless they realize the direct impact, something which is going to impact them immediately on a short-term basis, they do not really respond for some reason, whether it is the middle class education audience, or the working class underprivileged people, because it's more about their livelihood in the first place. That continues to be their main focus. But one thing they do realize, that uh, the environment is changing. I mean, irrespective of what is their educational background or what they do, one thing they do realize, that environment is changing, and it is not changing for good. They do realize, and they have been experiencing this, particularly if I talk of Delhi, the air quality change. And so anything that you are able to relate, that if you do this, not immediately, maybe in the long run, you are able to see a positive impact, and if not us, at least our children will reap the benefit of that positive action today. So that really helps. And other thing is, of course, they always want to see some incentive. If we do this, what do I get from it? Of course, that is always there. And and now coming to our recent experience in Ghaziabad and Greater Noida area, there, while we were trying to restore this water body, we through this Jal Chaupal kind of interactive sessions, we are able to create that linkage and able to bring them back to what it was, how the environment was. They do realize now, at least, when we were kids, this was greener. This place was greener. We had trees there. We had, and this water body was, we used to swim there, or if not drink, at least. So now, suddenly, when we are talking and proposing, bringing this proposition that, if we collectively put in our effort, we will be able to revive them. So they see, oh, at least our grandchildren will be able to have the same kind of environment we used to enjoy. So, and that is working really fine. And also, of course, it is very difficult to make them understand the importance of microclimatic, the context, but we at least try and attempt, if we are able to put in some thinking around the microclimatic change, these immediate and environment can positively impact. So I don't know how far I was able to cover.
No, thank you. I can understand this challenge is always there. So yes, but your organization is doing an amazing job, and all the very best. Thanks, Pranab. Mirza, if you could.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Actually, it is definitely true that we have to look at how the alternative ways of energy, the basket basically. But when we talk about environmental justice and the whole aspect of communities being able to participate in decision making on such issues, that unfortunately is missing across the board, be it in hydropower dams or any other alternative means of energy, which is termed as which is coming in, for example, solar power projects or any other projects that are coming in. So in that sense, the energy transition that is happening also needs to be just in that manner. I think this it is not only enough to have an energy mode transition from fossil fuels to non-fossil fuels, but that has to also be embedded in a just framework. And that just framework only will come through such the stakeholders to be able to participate in the decision making meaningfully. And such platforms has to be created. I think as of now, we do not see those kind of platforms having a kind of impact in policy making on these issues. So I think I'm only concerned about that. There are certain examples of solar power projects in Assam, which is actually leading to a lot of conflict, similar to the pattern in which we are seeing in hydropower dams. So I think it is imitating the same kind of modus actually. So I think that is more troubling. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Mirza. Thanks a lot. Over to you, Vipul.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Mirza. I think one of our participants also said the incentive structure for non-fossil fuels and is also not so encouraging. I think that's what the sentiment you have also said. And thank you, Dr. Pranab. Again, like, I mean, it actually gives lots of hope that, okay, things can actually, I mean, things are not so good, but like, I mean, we seems to have a, like, I mean, good future ahead if such activities gets replicated. Yeah. So any other participants, any other questions for speakers? We are, yes, we have almost reached our time, but if any pressing questions, we can quickly take at least one more. Do not have any, then we'll close the session here. Any questions? Okay, right. Yeah, I think anyway, we have already, like, I mean, it's already 6:15, 6:16, so time to close this. And before I close, let me make this announcement that we also have a very interesting talk on IPCC report scheduled next week. So, like, I mean, everybody can join. Please visit our webpage for more details about the event. I think Megha has already shared the details, a few more details in the chat box. Okay, sorry, yeah. So the next session is on October 12th. So we are taking a break next week. And we also have few other, like, I mean, though we started as a network, we started with talks on Wednesdays. Now we have talks on Fridays and also on Mondays, and very interesting sessions. So do visit our webpage for more details on this like, I mean, whatever the activities that we do. So before we close the session, we would like to thank both our speakers, Dr. Pranab and Dr. Mirza, for taking time out and sharing their insights here. We also thank our discussant, Sushmita, for being here and also ask interesting questions. And we also would like to thank all our participants. Like, I mean, we have some of our participants who, right, are like, this is kind of prime time for them. They join us without any fail. Like, we have Gopakumar Sir here, and like, I mean, my colleague Megha, Bashanta, and Fajia, Dr. Fajia. And we also thank all our participants. We could see several of our students being here and taking time out to join this session. So thank you all so much again for this. Please be connected, stay connected to us, and join all our future sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.